Widening social rifts define our era, driven by indignant anger and manipulation through engineered fear and division. To move forward and heal, we need secure men and strong women. But more importantly, we must learn how to listen to each other. As I asked women around me how I could help, I started to understand that the idea I once considered a conclusion was only the beginning.
Women want to be heard, but it's not enough yet. So don't just hear us, but hear us when we say that everything that's happening is not enough to treat us as fully valuable, fully worthy human beings, equal in every way to men.
A unified answer that branches out into infinite diversity, with one common factor. The people not listening tend to be men.
But women cannot make men listen, and certainly cannot integrate what they hear into understanding and action. Only men can do that for themselves.
So if men can't listen to women, LGBTQ+, minority groups, or other people with different perspectives, maybe they can listen to a man having a conversation with these people. I'm inviting you into my journey to become a better listener and meet some intriguing people along the way. Hello and welcome to the If Men Can't Listen To podcast. I thought I was going to get the crossover stuff out of the way, but here I am doing it again. We have Nicole on from the Great in the Sack podcast, and it's a really cool premise, and I'm not going to ruin it by saying it wrong, so I'm just going to hand it over to Nicole. If you can introduce yourself and your podcast, that'd be great.
Sure. I am Nicole Michelle, and I'm the host of the podcast Great in the Sack, When Misogyny Leads to Mayhem. And it is a podcast revolving around misogyny and misogyny's effect on women and also on society. So I go through cases where hatred against women or violence against women has resulted in something unfortunately horrendous, to try to educate the public that it's real and it is happening and it is getting worse.
And I really look forward to hearing it. So it sounds like there's a little bit of a storytelling aspect to it, sort of like a true life crime kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like the storytelling aspect can paint a better picture and hopefully people think about it more. It makes more of an impression, makes maybe people want to take action more, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of it, too, is that, people hear these stories that are kind of far off and it couldn't happen to them. But I think, too, it's going to be interesting seeing this less of the, sensational, like, real-life mysteries on TV and more, like, connected to real people and having this, it could happen to you, there but for the grace of God go I kind of situations.
Right. And that whole "it would never happen to me" thing, people are talking about it more and more, that it can and will happen to you if you're not. I mean, of course, you can't always help it, but it helps to be prepared. And I feel like listening to stories like this, it helps one to be more vigilant. Maybe, learn things that they didn't even think about before, how to try to keep safer, because that is the world we live in.
Yeah, and maybe it'll establish some sort of like red flag roadmap too.
Absolutely. I would love to see our children being taught about manipulation in early school. I mean, like middle school.
Yeah,
because intimate partner violence, it comes young these days, and it has for a long time. People just don't want to talk about it.
Right. And I feel on the men's side of things too, it's more that we're never told it's wrong. We start out from a very selfish place as children. We're very self-centered as children. That's just a natural thing that kids do. But
right. Natural narcissism or healthy narcissism.
Right, because, your world is very small when you're a kid and you're the center of it. But like, as you mature, part of the maturing process in a healthy human being is that you learn that the concept of other people, you learn sharing and you learn how to, still have yourself centered in your life. You're still the main character of your life, hopefully. But you also learn
the ability to reflect, right?
Right. You also learn that other people. You were going
for.
Yeah, you learn that other people are the main character in theirs, and you learn empathy, and you learn all this stuff. But then, what happens on the male side if that selfishness is not only allowed and ignored, but oftentimes celebrated, and then you get a whole half of the population essentially that didn't quite learn the lessons of Sesame Street and sharing. It's just absolutely like socially held back, but in a way that damages and harms other people.
Absolutely. It's like this message that society is sending that overrides the Sesame Street and all these morale like type of lessons we learned as kids. It's like the parent, I know that I had that would behave one way in public and then another way behind closed doors. So I can't even imagine what it would be like to not be able to show that I'm sad or have to think about being the toughest and the best at sports. And, we have our struggles too, but I'm really starting to see how the patriarchy really does hurt us all. It's very sad. I'm reading a lot about incel culture for my next episode, and it's very sad. It's frustrating and it makes me angry, but I can also have empathy to an extent. Do you know what I mean?
To an extent, yeah, I think.
Yeah. It's a very loathsome thing, but yeah, it's tough.
I've talked about this too in like 2 previous podcasts, so I'm not going to get too far into it, but I really feel like the loneliness epidemic is sort of a self-inflicted wound. And the thing is, the people that are in that incel culture, I feel like it just compounds itself past a certain point and creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. And there's a point where I can actually think back into my life, and I'm expecting people to be open about what they say here too, so I'm going to hold myself to the same standard. I started late. I was massively afraid of getting somebody pregnant because I was brought up, with the idea that you stick around and take care of that kid. You don't, run out on your responsibilities no matter how young you are. And that really just terrified me away from that part of things.
I get that.
So
yeah,
I started in my early 20s, right? And
up to that it's point, because you were so worried, right, about impregnating a girl. Okay.
But here's the thing. I could have very easily slipped into that incel cycle because at that point, I watched everyone else just get on with their life. And then I felt left back. But then the difference is I was able to process that was kind of a me thing. That wasn't other people. But for a hot minute, there was that thought in my head that this wasn't my fault. And if I didn't have that ability to self-examine, I would have gotten stuck there. So I can honestly say that it's just a lack of self-awareness. Like, you got to think, what are you bringing to the table? And if what you're bringing to the table is bitterness in a sense that you're owed something, would you date you?
That's a great point. I mean, it's like you want to hold a mirror up to them and be like, look what you're contributing, though. Like, look at this. All you're doing is picking out that you'll never be good enough. It doesn't. It's very hard. I don't want to say like you got to try and you got to do it like this, because I understand some people don't have the privilege of, like, I understand now that a lot of incels have autism. And I didn't really understand that before, because they are people who are on the outside of society. And sometimes, not always, of course, but I can understand how that can happen. You get a little bit into your own world, and then you find something where you're connecting with people. And it's like you said, if you don't take that time to self-reflect, then it becomes like to me, I think it becomes almost like a cult.
Yeah. And it, I was going to go someplace with this. This is the lovely part about getting older, and I have to backtrack sometimes in my thoughts.
Oh, yeah. I started keeping a pen and paper.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you can see it. My computer's right next to me because I don't dare disturb the recording process because that can really get messed up.
It'll get cursed.
I've got my computer and my phone sitting next to me. So if I need to do anything, no more rustling of papers. I found that out in my second episode. The nope, I'm a paper person. And this, you heard.
I've been there.
The whole episode, all you hear is this paper shifting back and forth. And I'm listening through the episode and going, there's no way I can get rid of that. So anyways, what I was going to say is that, oh God, it's gone again. Yes, here it is.
Oh,
the whole
I feel
point,
great about this.
I've with autism too, and I've got a lot of personal experience with it. I think what's missing is the modeling and just open communication of modeling the type of conversations that these people need to be having. And it's one of the things I really hope to, a bridge I hope to build with this podcast is getting the idea just through modeling it that you can have a conversation and not necessarily have to have a goal other than just getting to know that person.
Yeah.
And so many people start out with this goal of, I'm going to accomplish this in this conversation, instead of just letting it go where it needs to go. And I suppose since this is a crossover episode, I can talk a little bit about my project.
Yeah, please do. Because I find it very interesting, and I think it's so important. we need this.
Well, I always thought I was a good listener because I grew up around strong women and secure men, and I thought I knew how to listen to women. And yes, I was better than a lot of men my age, but what it allowed me to do is realize it's that whole saying about the start of wisdom is knowing that you don't know everything.
The
same
That's
thing.
so true, isn't it?
Yeah, and the same thing happened here, where the more I listened to people with a different perspective, the more I realized that I still had a lot of work to do. And, I thought when I had met my now wife that I was really good at it. And it turns out I was still a bulldozer. I still had a lot of bad habits. I still was listening to respond instead of listening to absorb. And actually,
the bar's low,
Yes. And, even though I was like a million miles ahead of a lot of other men, I wasn't still a good communicator. And, what I realized too is that this is an ongoing journey. I'm no expert. I just am self-aware. So
true.
What I want to do is...
Me too. I can feel that.
Yeah. What I want to do is I want to invite people along on me learning how to be a better listener, and really focus on people with different perspectives in mind, different viewpoints, different experiences. Not necessarily people I agree with. I don't want this to be an echo chamber. I want to teach people how to listen without having to have it turn into an argument,
Yeah. Get comfortable with people's opinions.
Yes.
Know that you don't have to take them into yourself. Just listen. And
right.
Because when are we done learning? We're never done learning.
Right. But I also want to showcase the beauty and diversity of thought. When you get this whole... Awesome. Yeah, when you get this whole... this is where the stuttering takes over. You just actually saw it. Homogenized...
My face is stuttering, so...
Yes, but the homogenized... just singular voice echo chamber that a lot of social media has become... I really think it not only blocks people from learning that skill, but it doesn't even let them know that skill exists. So that's something I really want to try and accomplish with this, is just bring people along and maybe, instead of having it be preachy and here's what you're doing wrong, just let them sit in on some conversations. Yeah,
it really is. The passive way like that, it is the best way as far as people who seem to be really deep in. I always hope that someone listens to an episode, even if they're listening to it out of hate, that they learn something and maybe take it in, and it builds and it builds and it builds until the shelf falls,
Right. You're just planting that seed of cognitive dissonance.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So
that's awesome.
I do have, I gave you some questions before, but I do have some questions for you too. And I'm going to start with that. What brought you to Sweden?
I came over with an old friend who was from here, and I ended up staying. Eventually, I met someone and had a child with them, and that is my awesome 10-year-old son, who I've told you about before, who has autism. And I say autism because in Sweden we say autism. It's not like autism. It's a totally different sound. So if I sound funny, that's why. And yeah, I saw one of the other questions, not to combine, but he is
combine
not
away.
A thing to be proud of, but yeah, I'm very proud of my son. I think that I know it's not easy to live in a world that isn't made for people like him, me, or you, it's tough. It's a little tougher to understand the nuances, So I found I really liked it here. And my mom often asked me to come back to the United States. And there's just too much here. It's just too much good stuff to leave.
Oh, yeah.
Between socialized healthcare, free education, university level. It's how can how can someone leave that knowing what they're missing out on?
I went to Iceland for 7 days on my honeymoon, and I honestly didn't want to come back. So I get it.
Oh,
Like it's
Iceland. I've never
another.
been there, but wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another Nordic country, and my roots are from Sweden and Norway. It just kind of
Okay.
felt like home. I'm only third generation here, so recent
Oh, okay.
immigrants.
I got you. Yeah. What's your last name? Or that's
Oh,
silly of me to ask, but
it used to. Long story short, it's Johnson because our former last name was too difficult to pronounce here, and they wanted
oh,
to fit in.
no kidding.
Yep,
Oh, my family changed their name as well. It was Gendowski, and they changed it to Gendek. It was Polish.
yep, yep.
That's funny. I guess
Ours
that's a
was. I
common
think it
thing.
was. I'm probably going to mangle the pronunciation. It was Vosted, Skoog, a few others.
Wow. Okay. It was a real tough one. Not as easy as
Yes.
Gendowski.
And it wasn't spelled the way it's pronounced. It's one of those weird things. I'm sure if my uncle heard this would
Ah,
probably correct me. Um, but
that's
yeah,
okay.
they
He won't
all
hear it.
got to the United States and they said, well, we want to fit in. So what do
Yeah.
and it just became Johnson. It's a Scandinavian thing too to be like, well, who's your dad? That becomes your last name.
Right. Skoldotter. Uh-huh. Like
Yes.
she was, yes, exactly. Skolmaker. Hmm.
Yep. Yep. So
Awesome. Yeah.
I hear that's one of the hardest languages to learn too, like any Nordic language.
Oh, yeah, it's hard. I can't imagine it's as hard as Japanese or something like that. Or I think Arabic would be very hard because it's a whole different system of letters.
Hmm.
But ja, jag kan prata jättebra svenska, men det är jättesvårt. Och
Yes.
it's taken me a very long time to
Yes.
get that good
Um,
in school.
well, yeah. I mean, yes, and there's a whole like it was weird too because they've got different letters that I didn't recognize in Iceland, and they mean different things. But it's like going back this 1,000-year-old language that hasn't evolved except in spelling, and like the
Right.
pronunciation is
From
exactly the
runes,
same.
right?
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
fascinating
yeah.
to me because I was driving around and there was all of these signs and it's like, oh, I can kind of make out what that word is, and realizing how much of that language is folded into English.
Oh yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it goes both ways a little bit, but of course, there's more that the English has taken
Right. Well,
from the Swedish
it's
language. There's
oh, poor old
smorgasbord is one of my favorite.
yes, poor old defenseless England and such. They kind of went and had a complete turnaround, but for a while they were getting invaded by everyone, and like everyone who invaded just left a little piece of their language in there, and that's the joke about English being just like 6 languages in a trench coat pretending to be one.
I like that. That's good. I'm going to steal that.
Yep, yep. All right. So I kind of cut you off a little bit because you kind of perked up when I said about those questions that I had. Was there anything you wanted to like? Those are just really icebreakers. They're not really mandatory.
Yeah, it's good to have something. It makes me feel it's like my defense mechanism. Like I have something if I need to look at.
All right.
But
Well, is
not
there
to
any of
shock
them
them,
that
of
you? Because
course.
the whole point of this is to humanize people and as well as model that conversation. So if there's anything you wanted to like, oh hey,
Sure.
that would be a good one to answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important to say women want to be heard as as a complete sentence could be women want to be heard in a way that doesn't muffle men. Like we're not trying to overpower the voices of men. We just want to be heard. Also, I
Yes.
think I heard a really good, I saw a great video on Instagram and it was somebody explaining patriarchy. And he said, and you probably maybe even have seen it. Patriarchy is basically, if you think about it like this, it's a man's boot on a woman's neck. And feminism is just asking for the boot to be removed.
Yep.
I thought that was, yeah, of course it's more nuanced after that, but
Oh yeah.
for
There's a
the,
lot of
you know,
repositioning of the boot in that analogy, but like I think it actually is pretty
right,
fitting.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really is. It doesn't get much more difficult than that. But I think that I like to say that misogyny is a conspiracy, that is the idea that women are a conspiracy.
Right. That actually is a good way to put it. I
Yeah.
always look at it. It's like if you need somebody to fail for you to succeed, then you need to find another way to succeed. I feel like this isn't a
Yeah.
zero-sum game that everybody could succeed, and there's no need to actively suppress Because if we're all succeeding, that just rises us all up at a faster rate. But if we're trying to, it's like watching those old cartoons where they're trying to like scramble to get to something first, and they're like, the one thing will push the other one backwards and so forth, and they don't really move forward. I feel like we get stuck in that cycle of not really moving forward because we're so worried about actively suppressing our competition when the competition is artificial in the first place. There was no real need for the competition.
Right. It's just those outside forces of society making us feel that it's all so important.
Right. And, there's another level of conspiracy, if you really want to get into it, that the idea of people in power love to keep us, lowly peasants fighting each other because it keeps them busy. Free of our,
it keeps us busy and not looking at what they're doing.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's very accurate.
And there's no reason for a power structure to come away from patriarchy or racism or classism or any of those other isms, because that keeps us down, keeps them at this elevated level where we're not a threat. And, it's like you said, it's the distraction.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's very popular in cults too, to do that. This behavior where you keep everyone sleep deprived, climbing to get a footing in reality. You deprive them of their basic humanity. Now, of course, that's extreme, but it's kind of, being on the phone all the time, being on social media constantly. Look what this is doing. And it distracts us from the things that are really important. And I think that's their goal.
I know that could be an interesting angle too. Like, I'm not trying to like tell you how to do your podcast or anything, but that could be.
No,
I know there's
always
probably
open for suggestions.
Oh, there's a lot of fruit on that cult tree for that subject.
Oh, yeah. I was obsessed with the Nexium cult for a little while because through my life, I know I have seen those types of behaviors in the relationships that I've had. There's like controlling behavior that I think men don't even realize they're doing. And I'm not saying women don't do it too. Of course they do. But my podcast isn't about that. But it is all effects of misogyny, isn't it? I mean, or at least most of it, I would say. Excuse me. Are you there? Oh,
yeah, I am. I'm just, sometimes I'm just listening.
Absolutely.
I think on my own too, like the reason why I'm kind of an outsider to that dynamic is I grew up, I'll say this a million times on this podcast, so it is what it is, but I grew up around strong women and secure men. And what I aspire to in relationships is I want a warrior by my side. I don't want someone submissive standing behind me. And I think that leads me to not think in that same way where the suppression, the misogyny, the patriarchy, and that kind of stuff are necessary for me to feel fulfilled, because then I'm missing who would be my strongest ally and defender, because I'm doing the same for her. It's like a different
level of relationship, right? I mean, it really, I think it would be so fulfilling to have that,
Mm-hmm.
To be able to have that equalness with someone, and we're in this together and we're going to fight for each other, And I think it gets lost in the patriarchy a lot of the times. Yeah. And you're perceived as weak if you portray those qualities toward a woman. And it's just so twisted up,
Yeah. I really think, honestly, patriarchy and insecurity are different views of the same object.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. One is used with the other to control and to keep it going, to keep the cycle going.
Yep. And instead of raising themselves up, their answer is to suppress people so they're below them. And it's like you're hobbling yourself, like even on a selfish level, even if you worked all of the altruism and empathy out of it on a selfish level, engaging in patriarchy holds you back. And it's completely puzzling to me why people have seen this fail for millennia and still think it's the answer.
Yes. And I think we could talk about the men's role in ending gender-based violence and trying to, because I know that's what your podcast is kind of centered around. How do we rally up the guys? How do we
absolutely
convince them that the patriarchy is hurting them too. It's just so deeply ingrained in them that they can't see the other way. But it could be so much better. And I think a lot of men think, I'm not going to put my neck out there for some broad, no, I'm kidding, for some woman who's not going to do anything for me. Why would I get myself hurt or killed? But yeah, it doesn't have to be that way, though. We're not asking any guys to go out there with guns and knives. It can be as simple as deterring a conversation that is very sexist or speaking about violence against women. It can be that easy to start. It's got to be somewhere. We got to start, right?
Right. And if you like, I think a good way to start with that is just familiarizing yourself with the pyramid of violence.
Yeah.
I think it's like the pyramid of violence and discrimination, actually. It's
enlighten me. I would love to hear it.
That's something that's probably best to look up. That one is
okay.
Let me pop open the Googles here, or DuckDuckGo actually,
sure.
now, because I'm a little angry at Google. I'm not really using that.
Oh yeah.
All right.
It's acting up.
Well, once we start renaming things that were named like 500-600 years ago, maybe it's not a great idea. All right. So what is it called? Pyramid of Discrimination and Violence. And let me bring up one of the pictures here.
Okay.
Oh, that's in child development. But basically, the long story short of it is that it starts with like jokes and conversation, and then it escalates to like bullying, and then it escalates to physical violence, and it escalates to like murder.
Okay. Right. Stalking and then murder, and those things become, okay. I know what you mean. Yeah. And I think so many people don't even realize that there is a way that these things go. It does follow a lot of the same patterns very often.
Yep.
It's just identifying those patterns and being aware of them, and being aware that it does make a difference to interject in these things in a safe way.
Well, and to the point, like if you are, it's a lot safer for us as men to stop it at the jokes than it is for a woman to try and stop it at the violence point of that pyramid. And it's something that really doesn't take any effort from us other than standing up for what's right and wrong, and acknowledging that certain things are inherently wrong. If you have to make someone suffer to laugh, then maybe that says a lot about you,
Yeah. Yeah. When are they going to see that and be like, oh, it's time to reflect, though? I think they're not only just these people that I'm speaking about, people who are so deeply entrenched in their views that they don't seem to see a way out. I don't know if anything will ever. They're like true believers of the cult of the patriarchy, and true believers, they don't turn.
No.
So I think it's almost like I started feeling lately to just put my energy into where I could make a difference, and to give up on those who are just too far gone.
Right.
Save the energy because we need it.
Well, I think the best thing you can do is look at the next generation of people, or approach things from a different angle. The direct approach, telling them they're wrong, isn't going to work.
Yeah, no. No.
I don't think we need to be nice to those people. I think we need to just approach it from a different way. Like, we can still be firm and stand firm on our position, but we can also approach it from a different way, where maybe we're letting them just passively watch the rest of the world succeed while they fall back and stop getting rewarded for their behavior. And I think we're kind of in that right now. Another thing that I've recently come to understand is the concept of an extinction burst, and it's something that is mostly descriptive of like a personal psychological journey with someone with bad behavior, where you pull the reward for the bad behavior and they throw a tantrum right before the bad behavior starts improving. But that can be applied to society. And all of this really awful stuff happening right now, I've heard described as an extinction burst. And I'm really hoping that's true. And what we need to keep doing is removing the reward system.
I've never heard that before. I'm going to research it when I'm
yes,
done
it's
here.
Fascinating. It really is.
And
it actually makes all this make sense. This is the tantrum that the patriarchy is throwing because the last 50 years or so has been weaning them off of the reward for hurting people.
Yes, and I know in cults they call this the double down.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
like, yep, the double down.
I wonder if that's those are related concepts, because now I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, I think they start to feel that they're slipping, their control is slipping away.
Mm-hmm.
So then they need to try different things, and they need to try it hard. And they really start to just gaslight the public. In this case, I would say with the cult of MAGA.
Yes.
And the patriarchy, of course. Because look at other countries. If Germany, the extremist group there is getting bigger. Turkey is heading toward a dictatorship. I'm saying that very vaguely and broadly, but if you look at the behavior of the country, there's just India is still pretty bad with violence against women.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's amping up around the world. Is what I'm trying to say. It feels like something is happening, and this is the time that we have to be really aware and look at the patterns. And like you said, in a way, I like how you said to kind of be there, I think, to educate people, or not educate, but kind of put it in a way that they can passively listen, not be hassled by the people in their group. Like put it in a way that they can access it, or that they might.
Right.
I think it's also helpful to leave, not to be nice if you feel, if one is feeling bad about the situation, but to leave the door open for loved ones who have crossed over to the other side.
Yeah, and it's never too make it clear that it's never too late to come back from that position, and you're not going to be punished. You're going to be rewarded for coming back from that position, because the thing is like it's all about rewards to actions and reconditioning their thought process, the reward and punishment of it. Because the second you cave, like when you're in, this is the hard part for everyone who's going to be involved, and it's not going to be easy because people are going to be hurt. When you are in the middle of an extinction burst, if you cave at any point during that extinction burst, that level of oppression and tantrum becomes the new normal.
Wow. And it's kind of what has happened over the last 10 years a little bit. It just, some weird stuff just keeps becoming the new norm. And I keep wondering when it's going to stop. And can you feel it? It's like a feeling of pressure. Like I've said, something's happening. And I understand exactly what you're talking about. I definitely am going to look that up.
We just got to power through it. We got to turn ourselves into the wave and ride the extinction burst and not give in to it. And that's going to be the hard part, because pushing. we are going to get hurt. We are going to watch people we love get hurt. We are going to watch people we love not make it through this. And if we cave, then that just tells them it worked.
Yeah. And they're doing something right. Yeah, exactly. It absolutely does. And I get tired of people saying, but I don't like politics. And when is it going to be enough? You breathe the air, you work, you get paychecks, it does involve you. It's time.
Right. And there becomes a point where it no longer can be ignored as background noise. It becomes a trumpet in your face. And I feel like we're here.
Yeah. Yep. Never know what the next day is going to hold, it feels like, when I turn on the news. Right.
But I think that as long as, we find something to, like the idea of actually being able to do something about it, I think helps. And it's absolutely. Finding what you can do about it, even if it just means getting through the day and not being crushed by it. That's something, because that contributes to the extinction burst not working. If you can keep your spirit from being crushed, and that's literally all you can do, that helps.
Yeah, as long as you're not like giving in and like giving in.
Right.
Meaning like giving up.
Well, I think too, what you're doing with your podcast is something that helps. It's something as simple as, well, if I can't go out and, march in the streets, or if I can't do this, or if I can't call a representative because, you live in Sweden and this is not really your fight anymore. And it kind of is. I'm simplifying for the sake of discussion.
No, absolutely. I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do something to help make society better. And I think engaging in the kind of conversation that really turns the light on and no longer lets this stuff get, swept under the rug. And I really am looking forward to hearing your approach to this, because it definitely sounds like a unique approach, to get people interested enough to listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a challenge because I want to stay true to the facts, which of course I do. But I really, really want to show people that feminism is not some bad word. It's just a better way to work together, you know?
Yes.
And to teach people about these things that have happened, they can't sit there and say, well, that doesn't happen to me, or that never happened, because it's right there. And the case is real.
So
And
many times where you might not even notice someone's going through it, but they are silently struggling with it. And even like learning how to look for the signs, like how people hide it.
Absolutely. Yes.
That would be
signs
useful
of trafficking,
too.
signs of abuse, signs of culture, like culture violence, I would call it, because honor-based violence, there's no honor in it. It's murder and it's violence. And these things, they affect women all over the world every day.
Yeah.
So I like, you absolutely have that correct about the podcast. That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
And you can slap, and this is actually something I'm glad that like kind of organically came up. You can slap a different name on something all you want. You can call it honor violence. It's sort of like renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. It doesn't change the fact that it's the Gulf of Mexico. It's just that you're calling it something to make you feel better about it. So they're calling...
It's another bona fide cult tactic too.
Yeah. And
changing the name of stuff.
You're calling, turning your family members in, turning your loved ones in for no reason other than their trauma made you feel bad. It just means you're an awful person. It doesn't mean that you're like putting honor into the world. No, if anything, you're putting
I like how you said
that
their trauma is making you feel bad and uncomfortable. It's so accurate of a description of how the people who are supporting this hatred and violence, it just seems to be the mindset.
Well, I couldn't imagine if my kid came to me and said, I've been hurt, getting mad at them and making it feel like that was their fault. Like, I can't imagine what kind of monster could do that and still feel like they're doing the right thing. Like, and I know it's probably culturally insensitive, but that I feel like that's a line that's pretty universal in humanity, that's not okay. Yeah. The whole idea of tradition just being peer pressure from dead people, at what point do you break the cycle?
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. I think it... Oh, I lost what I was going to say.
Oh, I love when that happens.
It was so
many
good
times.
Too.
Just take a second and retrace before I bulldozered you. I kind of realized I did that just now.
No, I got excited and then I lost it.
Part of aging for me has been accepting that sometimes that train just leaves the station and doesn't come back.
That's good. Yeah, I guess I have a hard time with that part.
I feel like, oh no, my brain is going, but it's when I read about it and it's like, nope, this is just normal. You're old. That's what happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So then I take a little bit of comfort knowing that everyone my age is going through this and it's not just me.
Is it true though? I feel like everybody else has it like this.
Oh, if I have any illusion of having my poop in a group, it's because I'm literally sitting here with notes on my computer, and I put up some talking points so I don't forget to talk about them. There's no shame in having to write things down and be organized to overcome memory not pulling as quick as it used to.
It's the way to get around it. I mean, that's how you got to survive, to be able to get the poop in a row, in a group.
It's something that a friend of mine said approaching 20 years ago, and it stuck with me. It's a nicer way of saying having your shit together, putting your poop in a group.
There's the timer. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So anyways, we got to get going because you have some obligations coming up. But it was really nice to talk to you, and I really look forward to hearing your podcast.
I appreciate it, and I am an avid listener of yours now. So,
well, thank you. All 3 episodes that are out now, 4 after this. Where can we find your podcast?
You can find me on Podbean and on Spotify and on, I think, basically like anywhere you listen to your podcast, I believe. iHeartRadio, YouTube. And you can find me at the name at Great in the Sack when misogyny leads to mayhem. And my name is, I go by Nicole Michelle, but I'm Nicole Davenport. Nicole Michelle is just the light name I use because I think I made an account in that name on Instagram. So you can find me all over the place.
Yeah, I also use Podbean, and it's really nice to, they really kind of lay it out for you and help you get on all those platforms. The hardest one for me was YouTube.
Exactly.
Because the YouTube one just didn't want to work, and I worked with support with them for a while to get it to go, and that was the last one, but now I'm on all of them. So you can find me pretty much everywhere too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I find you on Spotify, but that's good for everybody to know on my end.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I will...
It's been a great episode.
Yeah.